You are listening to the Redesign Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Lynn Grogan. I am a certified life coach, and each week I am going to help you take imperfect action toward creating a fulfilling and meaningful life. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey there, my friend. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time. If you're new here, greetings from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. It's a funny town name, right? It feels like the perfect place to talk about today's topic, which is, what if your path needs to be just a little bit weird? So I actually wrote the title for this episode before I had any idea of what I was going to say. But based on the title, you can probably guess where we're headed. And I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little nostalgic being here because this is actually where I quit my job just over 2 years ago at this point, without a solid plan for what would come next. I actually have a podcast episode about doing that. I'll put that in the show notes in case you're interested. So at the time, I didn't exactly know what I was going to do. I just knew that I was no longer aligned with the company I was working for and that I wanted to take a break to figure out what was next. So I quit, and then I took a 3-month sabbatical. It was definitely the right move for me. I definitely needed some space to think about things and explore options. And I know that's not always possible for everyone, but for me, it was the right fit, and it ultimately led me to starting my own coaching practice, which I love. And it's not lost on me that I made a big life decision in a place called Truth or Consequences. It's just kind of a funny coincidence. And in case you're curious, let me tell you really quickly how the town got its name. So back in the 1950s, there was this super popular radio show called Truth or Consequences. And to celebrate their 10th anniversary, the host said he would broadcast the show live from the first town that renamed itself after the program. So this tiny town in New Mexico, which was originally called Hot Springs, was like, yeah, sure, why not? They had a vote, and the people actually chose to change the name. So now, 75 years later, we have this delightfully named little town called Truth or Consequences. So what if your path just needs to be a little bit weird too? I think for a lot of us, we believe that life is supposed to be linear, and it feels like we're doing something wrong when it's not. Many of us were given this idea from a young age that things should unfold in a particular order, and if we deviate from that, well, we better have a good explanation ready for why. And for some people, like, having a defined path is it's reassuring. But for others, the idea of linearity can be incredibly limiting, and it can lead them to take on roles or stay in situations too long just because of how it might look if they left or changed things up. A classic example of this is when someone wants to make a change in their career, like I mentioned I did earlier in this episode, especially if that does include a break to figure things out. That kind of pause in working can feel dangerous, especially of how we think it'll be perceived. I'm sure many of us have mentally played out that job interview in the future where you're asked to explain a resume gap or a sudden career shift, and it can feel like you're on trial for your own life choices. And even if you haven't faced that situation directly, maybe you're anticipating it. Maybe even just imagining those conversations is enough to keep you from making the changes that you want. So what if, just for a moment, you gave yourself permission to imagine your path as a little bit weird? I truly believe that part of our work here on the planet is to figure out what makes us thrive and live that version of ourselves and share it with others. And that blueprint's going to be unique to you, and it might be something that you have to messily explore as you go forward in life. I think that's true for most of us. So sometimes your path might look exactly like the one that your mom took or your sister or your best friend, and sometimes it might look wildly different. So if your path is a little bit different, or you think it could be, or you're kind of interested, what would it take to give yourself permission to follow it, even just a little bit? Like, what would be those old stories about yourself that you would have to drop? Would you have to let go of being the reliable one, the successful one, the one who always does what's expected? Would you have to stop being the good girl? Would you need to stop trying to keep up certain appearances with the people who know you? What else would be different? The hardest part about taking a weird or different path, and I can tell you this based on my own experiences, is that it doesn't always come with the full support of the people around you, at least not always right away. Sometimes it comes with confusion and questions, sometimes with judgment, which all makes sense because, the people around you, they typically want what's best for you and what they think is safe, but that might not align with what you want. And also alongside that, you might also have your own inner critic or that inner voice yelling, like, what are you doing? So if you're going to live true to yourself, part of the work that you'll do is building a supportive relationship with yourself and finding a community to help you along the way. And perhaps the very first step in all of that is just acknowledging to yourself and maybe a few other people that you want to do things differently and that is okay. Telling yourself the truth might come with some consequences, but so does denying yourself the truth. So let's start with acknowledgement and go from there. What would it look like today to imagine your path as a little bit weird or different? What would be like the smallest thing that would be different? What would change about today? I want to encourage you to explore that thing, whatever it is, just to plant the seeds of a different path. Your future self will thank you for this. All right, that's what I've got for you today. If this resonated with you or if it made you think of someone else in your life, feel free to share it. And as always, if you want support navigating things along your own path, I do offer free one-on-one coaching sessions, and you can sign up for one of those using the link in the show notes or on my website, lynngrogan.com. Until next time.